Christine Andrews is one of the partners at Owlbear, the creators of Barbara Ian. She's a barbarian, and I ran into him at the Interface event last week. I got him to describe the game, and then I asked him a deeply unfair question.
We have developed a game called Barbara Ian.
The barbarian, yeah?
Yeah, she's a barbarian, and she only has 1 hit point, so she's unusual amongst barbarians in that she's kind of a fragile little lady.
This move towards insta-death, restarting, that's quite a big thing, isn't it now? What with, I keep on wanting to call it Dateline Miami. I always get that wrong. The Miami game, which name always escapes me. Was that the lead-out point for you guys, or did you want to go old school? Why did you do that?
Absolutely, we're massive fans of that game, Hotline, Dateline, Miami Vice, whatever it's called. And so we were very inspired by games of that sort of ilk. We really like the kind of instant turnaround and a very physical gameplay where it's super, super quick, very, very addictive, and it's very harsh in the way it punishes you for your mistakes.
You've done something similar. Obviously, I was humiliating myself just there on the game and losing over and over and over again. But, that's part of the fun of it, I suppose. I know it's an odd thing to ask you, but you've gone with a female protagonist inside the game. Why? Why do that? Because it feels like that isn't the usual thing to do. Was that a point of difference you wanted to explore?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we wanted to be different from all of our competitors. I think there's a lot of kind of very typically kind of machismo-based lead characters, and I think it's about time that there were some kind of proper leading ladies, and it's interesting to kind of contrast that kind of Conan the Barbarian dynamic with a strong and heroic lady who also kind of has all of the womanly assets as well that you'd expect.
Well, we had Red Sonja. We don't need another one, do we, really?
We need as many of them as we can get. I think girls need as many of these kind of strong, heroic role models as it seems men do.
If you were going to look at one AAA title which had a male protagonist in it of the last couple of years, and you'd say to yourself, they could have just made that a woman, why didn't they? Which one would you think of?
God, that's a really, really tricky question. So I'm not sure... Sorry.
For instance, Watch Dogs. There's a guy in there, loner, mean streets, family. He could have been a woman. Why wasn't he a woman? Well, why wasn't he a woman? Why not make that character a female? It's wrong of me to ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of somebody at AAA Studio, but why do you think that they went for the soft option of making it a guy?
That's a really, really interesting question, and I guess that too often games kind of fall foul of the same kind of conventions and stereotypes that movies have. And so with a game like Watch Dogs, where it kind of borrows very heavily from the action genre of movie, I wonder if they've just kind of gone for that obvious choice because they've seen it in many other films. And it's a shame that they don't offer you the option to choose a female lead character. One of the real great selling points of Mass Effect is that you can be femme-shep, and for me and many other players, I think I've found it way, way more rewarding playing as a female, just because it's in a way it's just that you're bucking that huge trend, and in so many respects females get kind of depicted as these kind of vulnerable characters, and I think that that's really wrong, and it's lovely when you get an opportunity to go against the grain. And so that's what we tried to do with our title, Barbara Ian, and I think that it should happen with many, many more of these AAA titles, because it's barely any extra work to get an extra voiceover artist to voice these things. It just allows people so much more scope and replayability, which is a huge thing.
Barbara Ian is available now, is it?
She's not available right now. She's just been greenlit, so she's going to be on Steam in July. And so, we're going to be ramping up the PR. I'm going to be dressing up in cosplay. I've got a cardboard costume complete with big cardboard boobs and foam muscles. So I'm going to be prowling the streets of London, bopping people on the head with my foam hammer.
Okay, I look forward to seeing the photographs of your arrest in the days and weeks to come then.
Christine Andrews there, one of the partners at Owlbear, and Barbara Ian can be found on Project Greenlight very soon. It's something that Julia touched on, Nathan, before that interview, and it's something that Christian talks about there at the end. He quite likes playing the female shepherd character in Mass Effect 3, and Julia likes playing as a guy in some of the games, and those options are important. You shouldn't really be penalised for making that choice, should you?
No, you shouldn't. And the interesting thing about the study that we're kind of discussing is that kind of initial gender bias, gender's a problematic word as well, the sex bias. Everyone might expect that women get less help than men, and that men are in the same way that they are in real life, in, the actual patriarchy. That doesn't necessarily exist as much as attractiveness. And what that kind of suggests to me, because there are still apparently these taboos, or there's suggestions of taboos around women acting as men, but not men acting as women, is that we're gaining in these online environments or in these gaming environments more of an acceptance that people might not be who they are in real life. We don't seem to mind that, and attractiveness seems to be the key thing. But we still, where the patriarchy is reinforcing itself, all those kind of sexism is still creeping in here, is that men are allowed to do it more than women, it seems.
'Twas ever thus, I think, wasn't it, Julia? I mean, you see that even on the musical stage, and nobody wanted to see a cross-dressing woman, but people were perfectly happy to see cross-dressing men, pantomime dames being a case in point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of the other things in a long list of imbalances, really, between sort of the male and female gender. I still find it quite baffling, really, in this kind of age, that these are still really issues that kind of come up, I still find it quite shocking, really.
That shock, that is something you tap into with your Tumblr, Misogyny Monday, isn't it? You might need to explain what that is.
Okay, so the short version of Misogyny Monday was because I've done a lot of kind of TV work in my time, predominantly kind of in gaming. It's usually met as a female with, who's she, doesn't know what she's talking about. She's obviously some kind of idiot. They've just put her on screen, blah, blah, blah. Irrelevant that I am a gamer and I know my stuff, but whatever. And basically when I originally started, I got quite a lot of abuse, and it quite upset me. And I used to get into lots of very heated arguments online because I felt like I should win. And then everyone kind of told me to stop doing that and just to be quiet. And I thought that was a bit irritating, that my special power as a woman was just to be quiet. It seemed like a rubbish superpower. And so I started this blog, which was called Misogyny Monday. And it's basically me writing really smart Alec remarks to really offensive things that I get on the internet, basically.
I have to say that I am often horrified by some of the things that people feel prepared to write to you. You don't know them, they don't know you, thankfully. Hopefully they'll never meet you in the flesh. Well, that's the question. If they met you in the real world, in the flesh, they wouldn't address you in this kind of way. They wouldn't try and relate to you in this kind of way, would they?
What sometimes really baffles me more than, sometimes these comments come from, like quite a misogynistic, angry place. And other times it's this really weird thing where they'll say something just unbelievably rude, like usually about anal sex or something along those lines, like jumping straight to that. And I'll kind of smart Alec remark back. And then their follow-up is like, oh, I really think you're great. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? It's not even coming from a place of like hatred where you think that, it's all going to be just like really angry misogynists. It's just like kids who just think that it's actually an acceptable way to speak to a woman jumping straight in like that. Because, obviously it's fine to talk about that kind of stuff right off the bat. It just baffles me. Sometimes these people quite like me, but this is how they converse. It's really peculiar.
Okay, as opening conversational gambits, I don't think I can recommend that one to anyone in any sort of circumstance, quite honestly, after 44 years of being on the planet. Wow. Okay, you completely derailed me there. Nathan, this is the keyboard warrior, isn't it? These are these people. Do we see that in this research? There's a little element of that keyboard warrior kind of itis creeping in, even in that kind of realm.
I think that it certainly is part of the same phenomenon of how our actual selves are filtered and become different. The study is an extraordinarily complex work about the various kind of interrelated ways in which our real selves are kind of torn apart as we go online and then reconfigured. And I think definitely part of that is what's going on. I think as soon as you employ any kind of filter between you and another person, whether it's a computer or a telephone or anything, then you react to them slightly differently. And I think, unfortunately, what Julia experiences is probably a less sophisticated version of what this study is investigating in online worlds.
It is important to say, as Dr. Ivory did say to me, that in the main, people were being very cooperative, that these were very subtle effects. But the echo chamber of the internet and the world that we deal with now, Julia, being what it is, even the most subtle effect has outliers that are the sorts of things that appear in your Tumblr, aren't they?
Absolutely. And for a lot of young people, they still think sexism's like, all right, love, make me a cup of tea, slap on the bum kind of thing. And actually, really, it's a lot subtler than that. And it does exist in this very, very thin area where it's little kind of nuances that if you aren't really sort of in tune to see, a lot of people don't notice. And like part of the reason why I started the blog was because I would tell people about this stuff and they would sort of be like, yeah. And then as soon as I started actually putting this online, and yourself included, Adam, they're really, really shocked. And they're like, I can't believe people say this. I was like, I've been saying this for years, but until I think someone sees it, in black and white. They just can't imagine what it's actually like, or the kind of, and to be fair, I don't even get it that bad compared to a lot of other women. Like, mine's quite light in comparison. I've seen some horrendous stuff, like way worse. But I mean, that's almost less scary when it's so overt than when it's this kind of very subtle version of it. That kind of annoys me more, because that's the one that's always contested.
Yeah, argued over and those sorts of things. I'm looking at the stack of games I have right next to me, and I'm thinking about the number of times I can play as a sort of a leading female character. I've got Portal 2 up there. That's one. That's a female character there, although she doesn't speak. Mass Effect, of course.
Yes.
You play as female Shepard. No, Far Cry. No, Batman. Well, I don't think those count because they're just playing as a minifigure. Yeah. And there are a worryingly slender number of titles up here that I can actually choose to be a female character in, and I don't know the reason why. Why can't the lead character, Nathan, in Watch Dogs be a woman with a past? Why is that? Why is the soft option being a male character?
People tend to think of you as an ideologue if you say the truth, which is that white male is the default culturally for us still. I think it's become under attack in cultural circles more and more lately. And there is, I think that if we wanted to use the word Gamergate, that's why Gamergate happened. It was a reaction against more and more critics saying, hey, maybe it's not cool that everyone basically looks the same 30-something white skinhead man in almost every game that I play on my console at home. That's really strange. There is no good reason. Ubisoft tried to say it was, expense and resources, which is ludicrous as far as I'm concerned. And the reason is because we live in a patriarchy, and that kind of experience is seen as default. Those customers are seen as the ones that we should serve, and culturally that is the idealized form of experience, isn't it? Unfortunately, I think things are getting better, or at least we're having discussions like this one more and more in an attempt to make them better.
Yes, and characters like Charlize Theron's Furiosa, I think it is. I've not actually seen the film, in the new Mad Max film, Julia, getting stick from some locations for being a strong woman in a man's world. That's a bit tragic, isn't it?
It is a little bit tragic. And I think that, it's one of these things where I think because things have been a certain way for a certain time, they use all of their research and all of their stats back up the fact that if they have like a male protagonist in a film, they will sell this amount. And, and just because it hasn't really been done before, they see it as a risk. Instead of thinking, well, maybe we could actually get more women, half the population, who might be considering possibly becoming a console gamer or PC gamer, we could actually, maybe get them to actually play more games. They don't see it as potential, they see it as risk. Do you see what I mean? And just because there aren't kind of stats to prove this, they don't want to take a gamble, basically, which is just beyond me, because you're just ignoring a huge potential market. Even just from a business sense, it's a bit stupid.
Risk aversion, Nathan, is a path downward to stagnation, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. And I think the even more ludicrous thing is, I think if recent studies of Hollywood, that it's not even necessarily true. It's an accepted wisdom, which doesn't really have a financial backing. I think there's been lots of female-led comedies in particular over the last 2 or 3 years, which have proven, so with the Pitch Perfect and Bridesmaids and those sorts of things, which prove that not just women, but also men will watch these things if they're made. People are much more interested in making good things. And I think, again, that kind of taking those things for granted is the easy default route that we have taken for so long.
Blundered into, and we should stop blundering into it. Right, on that sort of upward note, let's leave it. We'll say thank you very much to Nathan Ditum from The Telegraph and Rock Paper Shotgun, and thank you very much to Julia Hardy, freelance games journalist. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Cheers.